Welcome.
This is from the Path of Sri Ramana Part 2. That's
Yes.
considered one of the readings, right?
It is. Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Thank you for asking.
Let's see. Okay. Yes, self-love is the best and the greatest. This self-love alone is the perfect love. The final state of refinement of the feeling of love will be experienced as the unshakable self-abidance. A state of love less than that is not at all either supreme love, para bhakti, or fullness of love, sampurna bhakti. And this love is self, and this love is Shiva.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful passage. Thank you so much for reading it. Can I ask you two things, please, Jahara? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'd at some point like to ask you to reread that. But before that, I'd just like to ask you what inspired you or motivated you to share that particular verse today?
Well, I read part 1 of the Path of Sri Ramana, and I understand, I think, with my mind that self-inquiry means basically just to stay in the first person and the feeling of the I. Because I think my first week here, 2 weeks ago, I was asking about what that really was, and I was kind of relating it to the sense of behind my eyes. That was what I was kind of going for. But then when I read the first part of the Path of Sri Ramana and it being self-inquiry, I thought that you said, it was deeper than that. And so, and that I got that it's really just being in that first person. It's not putting it in the body somewhere. It's just feeling the sense of, okay, I am. And then when I read part 2, I'm still trying to understand what bhakti means. And I think I highlighted that verse because I kind of get the sense that what he's saying is that the true love, the feeling of love, like when I think of love for another, like my husband or my children. But when he says it, he's saying that true love is just being the sense of I. But I don't really resonate with that yet. Maybe once I don't really resonate with that yet. But I'm curious for you, like when you praise Bhagavan, and you always I feel like you're going to another. But what he says in the book is Bhagavan is me, right? So when I'm praising Bhagavan, I'm praising the self Brahman. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. And I can see your query, your question, and the sort of uncertainty about what is being shared. I understand that. See, the path, bhakti, you said you're trying to understand what bhakti is. And then we've got the path of bhakti, the path of love, which is the same as the path of self-surrender, which is one of the two paths that Bhagavan said leads to liberation, also known as self-knowledge. And that's the second path, which is the path of knowledge, or the path of self-inquiry. And what we discover is the culmination, the final part of the path of love is the same as self-inquiry. So to love ourself, our true self, is the same as to attend to ourself, our true self. So love and attention are one. So to truly love ourself is to attend to the self, which is self-attention, which is the same as self-inquiry. So bhakti, as you say, love to your spouse, love to your children, love to your nearest and dearest. This is love. This is bhakti. That's what bhakti is. But when we turn that love and attention to ourself, that same love becomes jnana. Jnana means liberation. Literally, it means knowledge. Jnana means knowledge, self-knowledge. That becomes liberation when we turn it to ourselves. The love we have for another, you know, when you really cherish something, you really cherish someone, you know, you can think of your husband, you can think of your children, or for other people on the call, you can think of people or things that you love. It's often people. You can think of someone you love. This feeling is the self, or is a reflection of the self. It feels like it's a feeling that comes and goes. We can have this feeling of love, and it feels like, oh, sometimes it's strongly there, sometimes it's not really there. So it feels like it's a feeling that comes and goes, this positive feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you have love towards your children and you have love towards your husband, there'll be times where you feel that very strongly, and there'll be other times where you're just not thinking about maybe your husband or your kids. You know, that's just part of life. You might be doing something else, so they're not on the forefront of your mind. So you maybe don't feel that kind of affection at that particular moment because you're not thinking of them. But this feeling that appears to come and go is love. It's also got another name, which is happiness or joy. When we feel this affection towards somebody else, we call it affection or love. But if you look at the feeling itself, it's just a feeling of profound happiness. The thoughts direct that happiness and love and affection towards another, but it's actually just happiness. So these two things, happiness, in Sanskrit, the word for happiness, or a word for happiness, is ananda, often translated as bliss, but the literal meaning is happiness. And the word for love, often we can say bhakti, which means devotion. Often it means a religious type of love. Or prema means love. Like that can be romantic love, that can be non-romantic love, prema. Love and happiness, ananda, bhakti, prema, they're the same thing. They're positive, they're intense positive feelings, or positive feeling. This is actually the self. It feels like it's something that we are doing that arises at a particular point in time. But actually, I suggest to you, and it's for each and everyone here to look into themselves and to see if this is true. Actually, I suggest to you that what you truly want, what you truly desire, is to be dissolved into this love permanently. Don't you wish to feel this total love that in which you don't even exist as an individual? It's you just dissolved into it. You're lost in the ocean of love. Yeah. Then it doesn't even, the same love you have for your nearest and dearest, perhaps your husband, your children, or whoever. That same feeling of love, to be lost into that, to lose yourself in that love. So all that is love. Isn't this what we long for? So I'm suggesting it is what you long for. But it's for you to listen to what I say and see if that's true. It's also called unending happiness, unending joy, unending bliss, ananda. What we discover is this is actually our nature. This is what we are. It's not an attribute or a feeling that comes and goes. Through ignorance, because we think of ourselves as a person, we take this as a feeling, a simple emotion, like a neurological, neurochemical, biochemical, neurochemical, neurotransmitters in the brain. We think it's some sort of process in the brain. This is how the mind rationalizes it. And, that's a biological view of this kind of feeling. But actually, we go deeper. This feeling is there. It's the basis of our entire reality. Now, it sounds quite a hippie type thing to say, but love is the basis of our entire reality. This isn't just sentimental affectation. This isn't just sentimental words. These are not just sentimental words. This is a experience truth that you can experience deeper than matter, atoms, molecules, neurology, the brain, biochemistry. We can discover through self-inquiry that the fundamental basis of the entire existence of the universe is love. And this can be discovered when we turn the same affection we have towards others, and we turn that towards ourselves. We realize actually the thing we care about most is ourselves. We have huge amount of intrinsic love for ourselves. And many of you will see this in response to your nearest and dearest as well. You'll see at times you have great affection for them. And depending on your relationship, you will also see times where actually you don't have great affection for your nearest and dearest, And these chinks, these cracks, show you have greatest love for yourself. What you want is you want to be happy. Right? Now, this truth that the thing that's dearest to us is actually ourself is often looked upon in many societies as being selfish and self-centered. But what Bhagavan in his teachings reveals to us is actually no, this desire, and it's in the Upanishads as well, very famous lines in the Upanishads, where a husband there's a dialogue in the Upanishads where a husband is talking to his wife. The husband is self-realized. The wife is seeking knowledge from her husband. I know it sounds a bit patriarchal, but you do get those reversed the other way around as well, where the man is seeking advice from the woman. In this case, it happens to be a woman seeking advice, a wife seeking advice from her husband. And he says, the most important thing to you is yourself. You should love yourself. The husband says to the wife in this famous dialogue, the reason you love your husband is because you love yourself. The reason you love your children is because you love yourself. I believe this is explained in the Path of Sri Ramana, parts 1 or part 2. I think maybe in both of them. I can't recall, but in one of them at least. And Bhagavan says, this is true. Why deny it? We love ourselves the most. Again, contemplate the times where the intense love and affection you can have for another can turn into intense hatred and disgust and negativity. It can happen very quickly. Very quickly. People you thought you were in love with, suddenly you don't even want to look at them anymore. You can't stand the sound of their voice anymore. That voice that you loved so much before suddenly becomes incredibly irritating, These sorts of things. This should show you the nature of love. And actually, who do you love, or what do you love the most? Now, there are many sort of individual examples where we could try and argue against this. Like, well, people often give their lives for a cause, or they give their lives for their family. I don't want to get too much into that, because it doesn't matter. The point is, if you go towards yourself with love, then this is the path of knowledge. If we go outwards towards another, like I appear to do when I talk about Bhagavan, this is fine too. This will also take us to ourself. When we realize that everything we love, whether it's our spouse, our children, our parents, our guru, everything we love is actually within us. It's actually within our hearts. The essence of everything we love and everyone we love is actually in ourself. And when we realize the self, they all come with us into our hearts. We bring everyone we love with us. We bring everyone with us, actually, but also everyone we love. We don't lose them. We become one with them. So yes, there is a dualistic expression here. I need to pronounce that word better. I keep on saying dualistic. Dualistic. There's a dualistic expression with Tom, the way he expresses this towards Bhagavan. That's okay. We'll come to realize through love of God, through love of Guru, even if you love the God within your husband, within your children, this will eventually, you start to realize that where does God lie? Where is God? Where is Guru? The Guru is just the I am. The source of everything is I am. And eventually that love will come back to, it will turn around. And it will culminate in just pure being, which is ourself, which is love. Anyway.
So are you, when you say devotion, are you devoted? What are you devoted to? Are you devoted to are you devoted to the I?
So yes, we could say that Tom, the body-mind Tom, which is an illusion, is devoted to Ramana, which is an illusion as well. So it's an outward expression. But in truth, it is just I, or I am, being I. I am, or I, being I, is the same as I attending to I. And it's the same as I loving I. So it's just the self loving itself, or the self being itself. You could phrase it, being with Bhagavan, being with God, or being with myself. So who do I love? I love myself. What does that mean? Doesn't mean Tom loving Tom. No, that's going towards, not necessarily, but that's going, if that's all it is, then that could become narcissism.
That's ego, yeah.
Yeah. On the body-mind level, it's healthy to have self-love. You know, so Tom should love Tom, and everybody should love themselves as a body-mind, but also love others as well. But when in the reality, it's just the reality being the reality, because the reality's nature is love. We can phrase it as the reality loving reality, or love being love. Because Tom is an expression within Maya, within the realm of cause and effect, he expresses things based on his conditioning. Because Tom has had this profound experience through the apparent grace of an outward teacher, Bhagavan Ramana, whose teachings are apparently, or seem to be, fantastic. Tom expresses himself this way, because this is a vital part of his journey. And Tom cannot really help but keep on expressing himself this way. There are problems in that because Tom expresses himself that way. It creates these kinds of questions. But there's also huge potential in that expression. There's a huge potential power in that mode of expression that bypasses the intellect and can actually only really be understood by another devotee. Doesn't have to be a devotee of Bhagavan's, but a devotee of God, disciple of God. This will be understood. This feeling will be understood. Do you understand it? Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I do.
See, then it's just wordless, of course, but it's just being love. Being love, that's what you are. Wonderful. Oh yes, I was going to ask you to read it again. Do you still want to? We don't have to.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, self-love is the best and the greatest. This self-love alone is the perfect love. The final state of refinement of the feeling of love will be experienced as the unshakable self-abidance. A state of love less than that is not at all either supreme love, para bhakti, or fullness of love, sampurna bhakti. And this love is self, and this love is Shiva.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jahara. Thank you, Sri Sadhu Om. Our love to him too. He is nothing but Bhagavan. Bhagavan is nothing but I am. I am is nothing but Shiva. Traditionally, Shiva is the deity that taught yoga to humanity. He's the first guru, we could say. In some of the mythologies, this is so. He's also the absolute, the self.